Nothing in Sister Wives history has ever prepared fans for the moment Kody Brown visibly crumbled, overwhelmed not by conflict with his ex-wives, not by another family feud, but by an emotional message from the one woman he has fiercely defended for years, Robyn Brown. When cameras caught the instant Kody's composure cracked, his breath tightened, and his eyes filled with tears, viewers knew they had just witnessed something far deeper than a typical Brown family argument. Robyn's message did more than strike a nerve. It shattered the walls Kody has spent years building around his heart, and the fallout from that moment has become one of the most talked about scenes in Sister Wives' long, turbulent history. From the very beginning of Sister Wives, the emotional core of the series has revolved around the shifting bonds, loyalties, conflicts, and heartbreaks between Kody Brown and his wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn. Over the years, audiences have watched these relationships rise, fall, fracture, and recalibrate in ways no one expected. But there has always been one undeniable constant running through all the chaos and drama: Kody's fierce connection with Robyn. Whether fans interpreted that bond as favoritism, genuine love, or simply the most functional partnership remaining, there has never been a moment when Kody wasn't visibly tethered to Robyn in a way he wasn't to the others. And that is exactly why this latest emotional breakdown has sent shockwaves through the Sister Wives fandom, because it reveals just how deeply that connection affects him, and how fragile even the strongest bond in the Brown family truly is. The explosive moment unfolded during a raw and painfully honest conversation in which Robyn finally verbalized emotions she had been suppressing for months. She has long been portrayed as the calm, composed, and often misunderstood figure at the center of the Brown family web. Some see her as the peacemaker. Others view her as the catalyst for the family's unraveling. But regardless of public perception, Robyn has always chosen her words carefully, rarely allowing herself to express the full weight of her fears and insecurities. That's restraint shattered in this episode. Her voice trembled, her normally steady expression faltered, every sentence cut deeper than the last as she admitted just how overwhelmed she was by the dissolution of the plural family and by the emotional burden of being labeled the favorite wife. Robyn has watched the family she married into fall apart piece by piece. She has seen Meri leave, Christine walk away emotionally and spiritually, and Janelle declare that she no longer recognizes the husband she once tried so hard to love. For years, she has stood by Kody's side as fans accused her of manipulation, favoritism, and selfishness. But beneath the accusations and gossip lies a woman who genuinely wanted the plural marriage to work. What viewers witnessed in her emotional message was not strategy or performance. It was exhaustion, sorrow, and perhaps most painfully, guilt. And that guilt is what finally broke Kody. As Robyn began to speak, Kody leaned in, his face tight with anticipation. He is accustomed to conflict. He is used to confrontation. He has spent seasons arguing, defending himself, raising his voice, and calling out what he perceives as betrayal. But what he faced in that moment was different. It was the realization that his last remaining partner, the woman he believed he had not failed, was hurting in ways he hadn't recognized or addressed. Robyn, through tears, confessed that she felt responsible for the collapse of the plural marriage. She expressed regret for not being able to hold it together, for not being able to bridge the widening emotional gaps, for watching the family crumble and feeling like she was at the center of every accusation and every resentment. Those words hit Kody with the force of a devastating emotional storm. His face changed instantly. The controlled tension gave way to trembling. His breath caught in his throat. His eyes turned glassy as he struggled to absorb what Robyn was saying. It was a truth he never wanted to confront. Kody Brown, for years, has clung to the narrative that the breakdown of the plural marriage was due to Christine's choices, Janelle's independence, or Meri's long-standing emotional distance. He never expected to hear Robyn, the one wife who stayed, admit that she felt responsible for the wreckage left behind. Robyn continued, her voice strained, as she confessed that she often lies awake wondering whether her presence in the family changed the trajectory of everything. She wondered whether Kody pulled away from his other wives emotionally because he felt safe with her. She questioned whether she had accidentally become the wedge instead of the glue. These were confessions she had never dared to voice publicly before, and expressing them now unleashed years of pent-up heartbreak. The cameras captured every quiver in her voice, every tear she tried to blink away, every painful memory she allowed herself to revisit. Kody's reaction was immediate and visceral. For a man often known for his fiery outbursts and defensive posture, he collapsed inward. His shoulders slumped, his hands trembled, and tears streamed down his face in a way fans rarely see from him. This wasn't anger. This wasn't frustration. It was devastation. He reached out to Robyn, but the emotional weight of her words pinned him down. His voice cracked as he begged her to stop blaming herself. For once, his focus wasn't on defending himself, criticizing an ex-wife, or asserting control. It was sheer pleading. Raw, unfiltered, desperate pleading for the one person he felt still believed in him to not fall apart under the pressure. What made this moment so powerful for viewers was not just the tears, but the vulnerability. Kody Brown, a man who has built his identity around confidence, leadership, faith, and patriarchal responsibility, was suddenly stripped of all protective layers. For the first time in a long time, fans were watching a man who realized just how profoundly he had failed, not just his ex-wives, but the wife who stayed by his side. His tears were not about guilt alone, they were about fear. Fear of losing Robyn emotionally, fear of realizing that even she was breaking under the weight of plural marriages fall down, fear of facing a future where the one stable pillar left in his life might no longer be able to hold the emotional load. Robyn's emotional message also forced Kody to confront truths he had avoided. For years, the plural marriage deteriorated slowly but painfully. Christine felt unloved and dismissed. Janelle felt unheard and unsupported. Murray felt abandoned. And through it all, fans watched Kody pour more time, attention, and emotional energy into Robyn's household. Critics called it favoritism, and viewers often speculated that Kody had emotionally checked out from the other relationships. But hearing Robyn admit that she felt responsible for the collapse made Kody finally acknowledge that the dynamic he created had consequences far more severe than he realized. The cameras captured his emotional unraveling with stunning clarity. At one point, he covered his face with his hands, unable to hide the tears. His voice cracked as he whispered that he never wanted Robyn to feel the guilt of the family's collapse. He never expected that the woman he turned to for comfort, loyalty, and emotional connection would internalize the blame for decisions he himself made. That realization broke him more deeply than any fight with his ex-wives ever could. The scene reignited intense conversation across social media. Fans flooded forums, comment sections, and discussion groups with opinions. Some felt sympathy for Robyn, acknowledging that carrying the weight of being called the favorite wife for over a decade would wear down anyone emotionally. Others believed the moment was a wake-up call for Kody, a sign that he finally understood the consequences of the choices that drove his other wives away. Critics argued that the emotional breakdown was long overdue, while loyal supporters insisted that Kody's tears showed his genuine remorse and personal growth. But regardless of which side fans landed on, no one could deny that the moment was powerful and possibly the most vulnerable Kody Brown has ever been on Sister Wives. As the episode continued, Kody attempted to regain his composure, but the emotional shock lingered. He expressed regret for not realizing sooner how much pressure Robyn felt. He apologized repeatedly for placing her in a situation where she felt isolated and blamed. He vowed to do better, to listen more, and to support her in ways he had not in the past. For the first time in a long time, his words carried the weight of sincerity. His voice trembled with every sentence, and even as he tried to comfort Robyn, the tears on his face revealed just how deeply the moment had affected him. The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship, one that forced both of them to reassess the emotional realities of their situation. Robyn's vulnerability exposed just how much pain she had been carrying quietly. Kody's breakdown revealed how deeply he feared losing the only emotional anchor he still had left. Together, they confronted the uncomfortable truth that the fallout of plural marriage had damaged both of them in ways they had not recognized fully. By the end of the episode, the tone shifted from emotional disaster to emotional reconstruction. Robyn expressed relief at finally letting go of the fears she had buried. Kody expressed gratitude for her honesty and vowed to work on rebuilding the emotional foundation of their marriage. Yet, even as they embraced, viewers could sense that the air around them had changed. They were no longer simply husband and wife navigating drama with ex-wives. They were two people deeply wounded by the aftermath of a family broken beyond repair. The cameras captured their embrace, and although it signaled comfort, it also signaled the heavy emotional work still ahead. Kody's tears were not the end of the breakdown. They were the beginning of a reckoning he could no longer postpone. Robyn's message was not simply an emotional confession, it was the torchlight that illuminated the truth he had avoided for years. The cameras had barely begun rolling when the emotional temperature inside the Brown family universe shifted so drastically that even seasoned Sister Wives viewers felt the change before they fully understood it. It happened quietly at first, the way earthquakes sometimes begin with invisible tension beneath the surface. But what unfolded quickly became one of the most unforgettable on-camera meltdowns in the show's long history. Kody Brown, the patriarch who once built his identity around unwavering confidence, sudden declarations, and an ironclad belief that he could navigate any storm, broke down in tears as Robyn Brown revealed a truth so painful, so piercingly honest, that it shook even him to his core. It was a moment that viewers were never meant to forget, a moment where the facade of strength cracked open to reveal something raw, vulnerable, and deeply human. What made the scene even more shocking was not simply the tears themselves. Kody has cried before on camera, especially throughout the turbulent seasons that accompanied the unraveling of his marriages to Mary, Janelle, and Christine. But this time, the tears came from a place that felt different. This was not the frustration he often expressed in past episodes, nor the defensive anger that defined so many of his later conversations with the other wives. This was grief, mixed with confusion, fear combined with disbelief, and above all, a profound awareness that something he thought he understood completely had slipped out of his control long before he noticed. Robyn's revelation did not simply surprise him. It dismantled the assumptions he had built his emotional life on for more than a decade. The scene began innocently enough. Robyn, who has long been perceived as the wife closest to Kody emotionally, and the wife he seemed to favor above all others, had agreed to sit for a one-on-one interview segment to provide her perspective on the latest family fractures. She sat upright, but visibly tense, her hands folded tightly in her lap as the producers asked her to reflect on where things stood today compared to the family's early years in Utah and the hopes they had once shared. Robyn's voice remained steady, but her eyes revealed something else entirely. A truth she had been carrying for far too long, one that she had struggled to articulate even in private, let alone under studio lights. The moment Kody joined the interview segment, sitting beside her and appearing visibly exhausted by months of tension and guilt, the air in the room changed. He leaned forward, ready to defend himself if needed, prepared to soothe if he could, and clearly assuming that whatever Robyn had to say, it would fall within the familiar script the two of them had been repeating for years. He believed he knew her, believed he understood her heart and mind, believed she would speak from a place of unity even when addressing difficult truths. But what came out of her mouth next was a confession he had never anticipated. When Robyn finally spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear of Kody's reaction, but from an emotional exhaustion that had built slowly over years of feeling unheard, misunderstood, and ultimately invisible in ways she had never acknowledged publicly. As she began to describe what she had experienced behind the scenes, her words carried a heavy grief that made the crew fall silent. Robyn admitted that the weight of watching the family fall apart
had crushed her spirit long before it was visible to viewers, and long before Kody even realized she was struggling. She confessed that she had felt utterly alone during the most chaotic phases of the family's collapse, even though she was married to the husband who repeatedly claimed she was his emotional anchor. She revealed that his protection of her often came at a cost she could no longer bear, because rather than shielding her from pain, it had forced her to carry the burden of everyone else's anger. As she continued, Robyn's words became more intense. She explained that she had tried to warn him many times that the other wives felt alienated and resentful, not just because of the family's logistics, but because of the emotional favoritism that no one wanted to acknowledge. She confessed that she had begged him, in private moments that never made it on camera, to repair his relationships with Mary, Janelle, and Christine before they reached a breaking point. But the truth she revealed next was the one that stunned Kody into silence. Robyn admitted that she no longer recognized the man she had married, the man who once built his identity around patience, fairness, empathy, and a steady hand. She saw him now as someone lost inside his own defensiveness, someone blinded by pain, someone unable to hear the emotional needs of the people he claimed to care about. And in a moment of devastating vulnerability, she confessed that she had reached a point where she no longer felt emotionally safe in their marriage because he could not see the depth of her suffering. That was the moment Kody broke. The man who had spent countless hours in confessionals defending his decisions, the man who insisted that he was doing the best he could under impossible circumstances, the man who sometimes dismissed the other wives' emotional withdrawals as misinterpretations or exaggerations, suddenly found himself unable to speak. Tears began to gather in his eyes, and he dropped his gaze toward the floor as if the weight of Robyn's confession had physically pressed down on him. He covered his face with his hands, wiping tears away in a gesture that felt oddly childlike, a raw display of emotion stripped of ego or performance. For the first time in a long time, viewers witnessed Kody Brown not as a husband navigating complicated plural marriage dynamics, not as a father caught in the crossfire of divided loyalties, not as a television personality struggling to maintain an image, but simply as a man who had failed someone he loved deeply without even realizing it. The producers let the cameras roll as Kody finally found the strength to respond. His voice broke immediately as he admitted that he had never understood the magnitude of what Robyn had been carrying. He confessed that he had assumed she was stronger, more prepared, more capable of handling the backlash and emotional chaos that accompanied the departure of Christine, then Janelle, and eventually the collapse of his marriage to Mary. He said he believed she had been coping because she always presented herself as calm, collected, and determined to maintain peace. But he had never considered that she had adopted that calmness for his sake, not because she was unaffected, but because she refused to add more weight to a burden he saw him struggling to carry.